It's such a pleasure to have you. So nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very glad to be here.
Well, I am obsessed with the amazing work that you're doing at the Resource Center, and I would love to hear a little bit more about you, your role, and the work of the organization. Tell the internet all about it.
Awesome, thank you so much. As you mentioned, I work for Resource Center, which is the primary LGBTQ and HIV service organization in North Texas. Specifically, I am the Community Programs Manager, which means that I oversee our youth, women, and LGBTQ older adult programming. And in that capacity, we're serving, in my capacity, I'm serving the LGBT community through through strengthening community, but Resource Center serves the community in so many other ways as well, through our health services and our food pantry, all kinds of things. So I'm excited to dive in and to talk to you more about that.
Likewise, and there you have many fans on in the comments right now, people who love the work of the Resource Center. So let me ask first, just thank you for your work at the Resource Center. How do you feel like it meets young people where they are, and specifically in this moment and always, how are you supporting Black and Brown trans youth?
So great question. Specifically, we serve the youth population here in North Texas through our Youth First program. Youth First is a community program that serves LGBTQ youth ages 12 through 18, one of the many programs at Resource Center. And we specifically meet the youth where they are in lots of different ways. When we are open to the public, when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, one of the great ways that we do that is by facilitating Youth First as a drop-in program. So in our community center, in the Resource Center Community Center, we have an entire Youth First suite that is a safe space for LGBTQ youth, and it is very accessible through the train and the bus, and other ways that youth can join in on their own. It's important when we're talking about youth to remember that they don't all have that support at home for a parent to sign permission slips or to drop them off at the center themselves, right? So a lot of our youth are joining in on their own in a drop-in style. So that's the first way that we're able to access youth that otherwise wouldn't be able to request access to these programs through their family. Specifically, when we're talking about trans, Black, and Brown youth, trans youth make up a large part of our Youth First participants. We support trans youth through all kinds of programming, including our Gender Identity Night, which meets every Tuesday. It's led by community members and Youth First staff to support gender nonconforming youth to talk about things in a safe environment, about their identity, about challenges that they face. We also have our suicide prevention program that is primarily attended by trans youth. But we also understand that queer youth of color need their own safe space to talk about issues that are related to intersectionality. So because of that, Youth First also operates our Queer Youth of Color program that is completely facilitated by mentors from the community to support youth of color in a way where they can talk about gender, they can talk about their sexuality, and they can make friends and network, but in a very safe space that's specifically curated to conversation needed for their sector of the community.
Thank you, Alison. So in this moment with the COVID pandemic, social interactions have been decreased, and many organizations, as you may have heard, everyone we've spoken to today has had to rethink how they communicate with their communities. The in-person connection, I know, is pivotal for your team to get to and work with young people. How has your team at Resource Center adapted to those changes? What's been your response to this moment, and will it continue? Have you liked it? Or are you excited to go back to normal? How do you feel about it?
You're right. Being in person with the youth is so important. For them to be able to come to an in-person space and be surrounded physically by their peers is an absolutely transformative experience. But we are operating completely virtually for our youth program currently, and the response has been incredible. So we were able to, back in March when things started to shut down, we were able to transform our entire program to the virtual platform. We use Zoom with a lot of security features in place to keep our kids safe. and they're able to participate 5 days a week in online programming to stay connected with their community and supported and able to socialize. So all of those programs that I mentioned, our suicide prevention program, our Queer Youth of Color program, our gender identity night, they're all offered on this online platform, as well as social opportunities. I think one thing that's important to remember when we're supporting LGBTQ youth is that there's two sides of it. One is that it's important to offer these safe spaces and supportive support group environments, but also the opportunity to experience things that LGBTQ youth may be isolating themselves from socially because of not feeling safe in those environments. So we're able to do that through online social interactions such as online Dungeons and Dragons or an online art camp, opportunities for the youth to get involved by socializing with their peers. So I have all kinds of examples if there's anything you want to follow up on specifically, but just by shifting our, offering our programming to the online platform has been able to support the youth in the exact same numbers really that we were seeing in person, but in a way that they can access at home, which is really important right now.
That is absolutely important. Yeah, I love Slime Warbling also loves the Dungeons and Dragons. That's so incredible. Has built quite a community around Minecraft since he's been home and building it. So I want to just take a step back, and it's hard to do this work in this moment and go through what we're all going through as well. So I just want to ask, we're talking about how your young people are coping and the support structures that are put in place, but I also just want to ask, how are you? How are you doing? How have you adjusted to this moment?
Well, thank you so much for asking. Interestingly, I think that we all get into this line of work because we have a passion to serve others and to help our community, right? My entire professional career has been in the public sector. It's always been about serving and giving back. And I think what is so interesting about these times of crisis that we're in is that I think that it can be quite overwhelming to be in the middle of a time of crisis and not have a way to help or get involved or to give back. I feel incredibly fortunate to have a professional position where I am already set up to support our community. It's really done a lot for my mental health just to know that every single day when I get up, my job and what I'm spending my entire day doing is specifically supporting members of our community. It's specifically giving back and responding to the situation at hand. And because of that, maybe I'm less susceptible to feeling overwhelmed or crushed by this crazy time that we see ourselves in. So I think that just by doing my job, I'm able to kind of manage that pressure, that external pressure.
I feel that so deeply. I feel like there's almost a frenetic pace sometimes to the work because it's so, I know the good that it's doing in the world, but it's also just something that I need so desperately in that moment. So I absolutely understand, and I'm so grateful for the work that you do and the drive that you have to do it. So going back to the work, so I want to ask, one of the common narratives that we hear sometimes is that young people only exist with their heads down on the internet, and that's not true. This is actually a generation, as you and I know, that values both online and in real life interaction. So your Youth First program is one of the only LGBT plus focused programs in North Texas that addresses the challenges that those young people face at home and at school and in the community. What are some of the ways to adopt similar practices to help keep young people engaged and healthy emotionally? We have people, Born This Way Foundation would love to learn from you. We have people from all sorts of organizations. So tell us about some of the practices that you put in place and how we can learn from them.
I definitely agree that youth do value tangible interaction. They're not, as you mentioned, they're not just staring at their phones. They're not just playing video games, even though that's a fun and important part of their fun social time. One of the ways that we've been responding to that need for youth to be engaged and to have tangible experiences right now, even though they're socially isolated, is to provide opportunities for youth to get involved with more tangible virtual programming. And what I mean by that is we're still meeting on Zoom, we're still meeting online, but we're able to supply the youth with tangible materials to stay engaged during that experience. For example, in July, annually we have our Creative Works art camp. It's a camp where it's a camp where the youth can get involved with learning how to express themselves through art, learn about the history of art and how they can incorporate it into their everyday lives to manage stress and anxiety, but also to have fun and be exposed to these cultural experiences. Obviously, we're going to have to do everything throughout the summer virtually, including our art camp. So we're able to provide the youth with all of the materials that they need through a zero contact supply drive-through at the start of the month. Not only for our art camp, but for all of our other summer programming. We do this drive-through once a month, where the youth can take home all of the materials that they need in order to stay mentally and emotionally engaged, to get out of bed, to do something tangible with a paintbrush, to put a puzzle together, to get their hands on a new book. All of these things really change that socially isolated experience at home. I think that that's something that all of these organizations who are doing virtual or online programming could think about in order to kind of up the game of what virtual programming can be. Get supplies in the hands of the kids so that they can have a tangible experience.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of getting supplies in the hands of the kids, can you tell me about some of the unmet urgent needs of the young people that you serve, and how I at Born This Way Foundation and all of the people watching can help meet them?
Oh, of course. So speaking of our art camp and other programs that need these actual tangible supplies, all of the things that we use for these camps and other experiences are listed on our Amazon wish list. If you go to myresourcecenter.org/youthfirst and scroll down, you'll see where it says view our Amazon wish list here. And that'll bring you to the link to be able to see all kinds of different materials that the youth are using. Being able to gift those tangible materials is a really cool way to get involved, because you can actually see and control what you're giving to the youth. If you're really passionate about painting, then maybe you want to support LGBTQ youth by gifting those canvases and paintbrushes, knowing that young people are going to be able to learn how to express themselves and deal with their anxieties and depression through painting. And there are all kinds of other things listed on there, different types of supplies. Maybe you're a bookworm like me, or maybe you're a puzzle fanatic and you want to get those supplies in the hands of LGBTQ youth. All of that's listed there, and they can get involved that way as well.
Thank you. We will absolutely check it out, and I'm sure Amanda has already found it and will share it below. What, Alison, in this moment gives you hope?
I think what gives me hope is really just being connected, with two different communities. One, with the youth that we serve in our youth program, as well as the other participants. For example, in our Thrive program that serves LGBTQ adults ages 50 plus. Being directly involved with those participants makes me feel so hopeful. For example, the youth, I recently was talking to one of our youth who's getting involved in a really cool opportunity, helping him create a bio, right? And we as adults, we know what professional bios look like. Just seeing how much that this young person has been involved with in his young teenage life gives me so much hope, because I know that we're in good hands, right, as we move forward into the future. And another thing that gives me hope is really just my interactions with the leadership at Resource Center. We have such an incredible leadership team. All of our senior level, our leadership staff is so supportive and encouraging and empowering. And I think that's just so important in this crazy time. Anytime that I need to check in with the leadership team at Resource Center, I feel so hopeful about the change that we're going to make and how much change we can see in our community moving forward. And the other parts of our organization as well. For example, our advocacy team is out there every day working on creating actual tangible policy change for the LGBTQ community. Just to see what they're doing in the advocacy department at Resource Center alone gives me so much hope for the future.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. In the 2 minutes we have left, we have a question from the Bravery Center. They ask any recommendations for small LGBTQ plus youth programs in rural communities. Would love for you to point them to any resources that you've seen or know of.
I think that one thing that's great in rural communities, maybe if that's an area or a small organization where folks can't get involved, or if it's a small organization that doesn't yet have their own type of virtual programming happening, there's a really awesome resource. It's not the Resource Center, but we do partner with them, called QChat. If you look up QChat online, it's this incredible organization that facilitates online safe space conversation for LGBTQ youth in all communities, and those in your rural communities as well, provided they have internet connection, can get online and they can chat with like-minded peers. They can in a safe, facilitated space. So I urge any organizations that don't have the physical space to get kids together or don't have the resources to create their own virtual programming like we've done in Youth First, to look up things like QChat to offer that to your youth.
Thank you so much, Allison. We can follow your work at My Resource CTR. Thank you for the amazing work that you're doing with Resource Center, and it is a pleasure to have gotten a chance to talk to you. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with us. And as I said before, it always feels really weird to end these conversations on you because it's very rude, and I wish they could keep going. But thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Awesome. Thank you. It was so great to be here. Thank you for having us.
Likewise. Talk soon.